What a episode. Honestly, you guys, this was, in my opinion, the best episode so far of season one. So we begin this episode with the return of Nimueh. Now, if we remember the character of Nimueh, she was the one that basically almost poisoned Merlin, almost sending him to his death, and almost, if she wanted to, killed Arthur, but said it wasn't her destiny or her fate to kill the crown prince. So in this episode, we see Nimue basically in the Camelot, seemed like tomb area, down the castle of all the fallen warriors of old. So we see Nimue do her usual evil little enchantment spells, and we see her free some type of knight, but we're not so sure who this knight is and for what purpose, besides the obvious ominous threat of danger. So we see Arthur basically being crowned officially by his father. I think it's like a coming of age ceremony since Arthur is now 20. So he basically agrees to everything his father said about protecting the land, being a good, noble prince and king, etc., etc., etc. Morgana's there. She's proud. So is Guinevere and Merlin. He can't help but smile. And while the festivities are just starting to begin, this Black Knight literally just goes through the glass painted window with his horse and just walks up in there like what? He's silent as like Jesus. Like this dude gave me some Darth Vader vibes. He's all like in black. He got some type of shield with some type of tree on it. He doesn't say anything. He just got this ominous stare with his helmet on, and he just takes off his gauntlet and just throws it right in front of Arthur. So before Arthur can grab it, I believe or Owen or something like that, one of Arthur's knights grabs the gauntlet and says, "I accept your challenge." So the knight nods and makes his way out of the place, scaring everybody in living memory in there. And unfortunately, even though obviously like the king has a right to be kind of like disturbed by this, like everyone else, it seemed like his look was more of a look of not just fear but familiarity, basically, was confirmed when Gaius, after he speaks with, I believe, the guy in charge of the records, he says to the guy in charge of the records, like the historian guy, that can you go through the records and try to find out what kind of knight had that type of tree on like their shield? And the guy said the Black Knight, and his name was Thomas Polier or something like that. So Gaius gets information. He goes up, meets Uther. And Uther, once Gaius comes to the door, he's shook. He grabbed his sword. It's like he's scared crapless. And once Gaius mentions the name to him, that's when Uther is reminded. You know what I mean? He's reminded of him. You know what I mean? That's how he refers to him. He refers to him as him. And what's revealed during this conversation is that Thomas is basically the brother. It's not confirmed if he was the older or younger brother, but he's basically the brother of Arthur's mother. And somehow he was able to come from the dead. So obviously this has to deal with some type of magic. Now the question is, like, what kind of magic? So basically, Uther has his battle with Orlin, something like that, basically. The knight I mentioned who took up the challenge. So as soon as we see the Black Knight fight, this dude not only looks like Darth Vader, he fights like Darth Vader. Aggressive, quick, like no quit, no stop, like at you like 100 miles per hour. And that says a lot because that guy, that knight, was a really good fighter, and he was staying with them. At one point, he actually gave him what seemed like a death blow or at least a serious wound, and the Black Knight didn't even flinch or wail in pain. He just took it, then he kneed the guy, hit him a few times, and then he ended it with a sword through the chest. And everybody was scared crapless, like what the freak just happened. And then Arthur, enraged by this, tries to challenge the guy, but his father stops him, right before he's able to leap over. And I believe one of the other knights decides to issue the challenge to the Black Knight, which is basically the same result. But before the fight starts, Arthur mentions to his father that that particular knight hasn't recovered from the previous battle that they had engaged in, I believe, weeks ago. But his father's like, listen, you can't fight this guy. This guy's clearly out of everybody's league. I fought him years ago, like 20 years ago, and I killed him. And it took a lot for me to kill this guy. And now he's back from the dead? Nah, you're not gonna partake in any of this. I don't care if it makes you look like a coward, whatever. You're not finding this guy. Let the other knight deal with him. Maybe he can take him. Which was wrong, wrong. That night, even though the guy put up a better fight than the other guy, still the same result. Dead. Dead, dead, dead. So at this point, Arthur was like, I challenge you. And the knight was like, shook his head and was like, all right, So Arthur, and everyone's saying Arthur don't fight him. But Arthur's stubborn. No, we all, we know how Arthur is. He's about pride, duty, and all that stuff. And he feels as he has to do this. So it's revealed, basically, I think God revealed this to Merlin, that this guy is a reeve. So a reeve is someone who's conjured up through the hatred in their spirit, basically, and by a sorceress or something like that. And the only way they can be destroyed is either by fulfilling like their evil desire, or to be killed by some type of magical weapon, which Merlin discovers while speaking with a historian. And I believe he realized that in order for this magical weapon to manifest itself, he has to use dragon's breath. So he speaks with the dragon, obviously down below in Camelot, and he convinces him to basically breathe fire into the sword, which he has Guinevere's father forge for him to help Arthur. But the dragon had one condition, and that was to make sure it's only used by Arthur. Only him, not anybody else. All right? So while this is going on, we finally have our questions answered for the most part when it comes to Nimueh and Uther. So Nimueh appears in front of Uther, and Uther's like, it's been years, hasn't it? And she agrees. And so many things is revealed in this conversation. For one, it's revealed that her and Uther, and what I can at least assume, maybe guys as well, were actually really good friends. They were good friends. And this, in my opinion, there's a possibility that they were possibly lovers, in my opinion. I feel as though there was more than friendship there until Arthur's mother showed up in the picture. Either way, she mentions how he welcomed her into court and how everything's all good, and that he was the one that asked her to use magic for, quote unquote, what she called his barren wife, and that she had no idea that she was going to die during childbirth. And he's like, yeah, you knew, you're a liar, basically. You know how Uther can be very stubborn. She's like, no, I did. She said, no, I didn't know she was going to die. But I guess it's just another example of how, when it comes to magic, it's a life for a death, or like a death. I mean, basically, like, in order for life to happen, death has to happen. So that's what she basically summed up from that experience, and that she actually did care for Uther, but Uther turned to this evil monster, killing people of her kind after the death of Arthur's mother. And she was saying, you have a choice. If you can basically own up to your crap, basically, then maybe your son can be spared. But Uther's like, no, I won't. And she's like, all right. So I guess you're going to have to lose two people you care about. So that's how the conversation ends, essentially. So Uther speaks with Gaius, and he tells Gaius that he was sorry for basically blowing a temper tantrum and for always being a hothead. But he basically wants Gaius to promise him that after he takes Arthur's place, that he won't tell Arthur about how he was conceived to begin with. And Gaius, even though he feels though Arthur's of age and he should know, he agrees to it. So Uther has Gaius make some type of, potion, whatever, some type of medical drippity drop to give Arthur, which makes him fall asleep long enough for Uther to take his spot, his place. So Uther gets himself ready, prepared. Merlin has, the sword that was breathed on by the dragon ready, but he thought it was going to be Arthur, but it turns out, obviously, that Uther took Arthur's spot. And so he's like looking at the story like, oh, this is beautiful craftsmanship. Who did this? And Merlin's like, I had Guinevere's father do it. He was like, you know what? You're so loyal to Arthur. You're a great friend. Make sure you're there for him, after all this is done. So Uther, we just see him walking to fight the Black Knight like such a badass. You look at this dude, you're like, Jesus, this dude must have been an OG back during his prime. Because he reminded me so much of Arthur. You mean? But the fight starts, and we're seeing the Black Knight like even more aggressive, even more Darth Vader-like. But this ain't like Darth Vader, like New Hope Darth Vader. This is like Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, like Revenge of the Sith all combined. And Uther, despite being older, is still keeping up with this guy, and even at times being on the offensive himself. He smashed him a few times with his elbow and his shield. At one point, he knocked the dude's helmet off, revealing just like just straight Halloween. Like his face was all bones, and it was like, it was like disgusting. And at one point, he had Uther on his back and tried to stab Uther, but Uther put his shield up and was able to grab the sword and stab him through the gut, which made the Black Knight basically explode. You know, just straight up explosion. And Nimueh was pissed off about this. She left like petty and angry and salty. So everyone gave Uther a stand ovation. I know I did, because I didn't expect the old man to still have it. So basically the next scene, we see Uther basically recovering from his fight with the Black Knight, and Arthur enraged about how his father sort of had Gaius like trick him and basically put a sleeper potion on him until after the fight. And basically his father's like, listen, I don't regret what I did. I had to do what I had to do. You're my only son, and I love you more than this kingdom and everyone else. And Arthur was kind of surprised by that, because he always thought he was a disappointment to his father. And his father said, you know what? That's my fault if you ever thought that way. And then Arthur kind of added, you know what? I heard you pretty good, but I heard your footwork needs some work. And then his father, like, I'll show you some footwork, and playfully kicks him, away. So after this, we have Merlin and the dragon speak, and the dragon basically have Merlin to throw away the sword into the lake until Arthur is ready to take the sword, when he's ready to wield it. So that's how the episode ended. In my opinion, you guys, this was a 10 out of 10, the best episode of the season. What do you guys think? Write some comments down below for what you thought about it, and if I missed anything, as usual. But this is Josh Vision. Adios. Have a good one.